Thanks, Lori. We are a member of the Oregon Nonprofit Hospice Alliance, and this three-part series titled Hospice Care Unveiled, a Roadmap to Advanced Care Planning, End-of-Life Care, and Grief is hosted by the Oregon Nonprofit Hospice Alliance, also known as ONA, in collaboration with its member hospices, including Lumina, Care Partners, and Klamath Hospice and Palliative Care. ONA brings community-based nonprofit hospices together to provide the best care possible for patients and families facing end of life. As nonprofit hospices, we are mission-driven and heart-centered in our care, prioritizing people over profits. You can learn more about our work on our website, onanetwork.org. You can also sign up for our email list to make sure that you hear about future offerings, such as this one. So today's talk is about anticipatory grief, and it's the final talk in our three-part mini-series. So we do look forward to bringing you more mini-series throughout the year. If there are any topics that you'd be interested in learning more about, feel free to email us or drop a topic in the chat box now, and we'll take those into consideration when we're working on our next series. Before I introduce our presenter, just wanted to go over some technical details. I have with me today Lori Kaiser from the Oregon Nonprofit Hospice Alliance. She is helping out with our tech today, so if you have any issues with Zoom, you can go ahead and message her using the chat box. And then also any questions that come up during the presentation today related to what we're talking about, you can go ahead and put those in the chat box as well. And we will address those as we have time, or we may save those for the end. Also, just keep in mind that we are recording the presentation today, and we're going to post that online. We'll also send out a recording to all of you that were registered for today's event. So you'll get that in your email in the next few days or so. And now I'm going to introduce our speaker for today. So raised in Fernley, Nevada, Emily Feldberg relocated to Klamath Falls after completing 4 years of active duty in the United States Air Force. And after her time in the military, she worked as a patient care technician in a hemodialysis center while completing her undergraduate degree in psychology at Oregon Institute of Technology. She first began volunteering with Klamath Hospice and Palliative Care, where she learned the benefits of hospice and the need for grief support in the community. And she's been working as the bereavement specialist and the camp director of the children's bereavement camps since 2021, as well as earning the certification as a certified grief counselor through the American Institute of Healthcare Professionals. So welcome, Emily. Thanks for being our presenter today. And now I'm going to turn it over to you.
Of course. Thank you, Holly, for your introduction too. And thank you for everyone who's here live or attending the recorded version. We're really happy that you have logged on and just learning a little bit more about anticipatory grief and talking about this conversation topic, because it doesn't usually come up. So today we're going to be learning about the grief's journey, navigating anticipatory grief, and hopefully we can learn some things together and we can get to your questions too. So like Holly said, if you have any questions, it would be great to pop those into the chat box. All right, and you should be able to see my slideshow here. So this is a quote we have that says, "Some things in life cannot be fixed. They can only be carried." And that's from Megan Devine. She's a psychotherapist and author of the book, "It's Okay That You're Not Okay." She's also one of the professionals in the documentary Speaking Grief. So she likes to have this conversation as well, and is a great speaker on the subject. So what is anticipatory grief? Anticipatory grief refers to the internal response to an anticipated or impending loss. So a person may experience anticipatory grief following the diagnosis of a terminal illness, a degenerative disease, or impending losses as well. So those can be divorce, a teen leaving for college or a job, pregnancy complications, even medical procedures like an upcoming mastectomy or something that would have another loss for someone to be reacting to. So it's often common that many people are experiencing a degree of anticipatory grief within their life. So witnessing or experiencing someone's loss of cognition, their loss of abilities or independence, personality changes, a loss of knowledge, if that was the person who liked to share stories within the family, those are all things that can affect anticipatory grief. And it's intensified by these outward stressors of a caregiving role and responsibilities, financial stress, feelings of isolation, exhaustion. Oftentimes, these roles push you into a position that you might not feel as confident in or capable in. So it's already uncomfortable to experience. And now you're having this in addition. So it can lead to a preoccupation or even a rehearsal of how life is going to be after this person has died. So there's many different things that affect it. So we have lots of common grief reactions. Please know that this is not an all-encompassing list. There are others on here that I left off. But grief affects a person's cognitive, physical, emotional, behavioral, and their spirituality. Common reactions that I see that come up in groups or that we talk about are changes in appetite. Especially if you're having to rearrange your cooking because maybe you're going from a 4-person home to a 2-person home or cooking for one. These are all different changes in our life. Decreased immunity, difficulty concentrating, changes in reading comprehension. That's usually like a change as your reading comprehension may not be as good as it once was for a temporary amount of time. You might be feeling angry. You might have relief, or sometimes relief is accompanied by guilt, a loss of or strengthening of your faith or your higher power, and then longing as well. So a way that I have heard anticipatory grief described is it's like you're trying to hold your breath until you're ready to process this pain of what is to come. And so there's some experts, and it's kind of the topic is out across the board, and there's differentiating opinions on it about are there benefits to experience anticipatory grief. And that really depends on the person or the people it affects. It offers opportunities, of course, to complete unfinished business as well as saying goodbye. But really, there's no studies that I have seen or that I've been able to come across that have said that there is a true benefit from it. So it's really different for each person. We have lots of common misconceptions about anticipatory grief, which is you can't grieve the future. Well, we know that, yes, you can grieve the future. Hopes and dreams are also losses to be mourned. Throughout the life of the bereaved, both adults and children are alike, they're going to experience these things in different seasons, and they might have more intense time mourning versus other times in their life. So they can grieve the future. And then we also have, you will follow the 5 stages of grief. There are other theories out there. So if you take comfort and enjoy reading the 5 stages of grief, that is great. But maybe if it doesn't speak to you as much, there are other theories out there that you might find more comfort in. We have the 4 tasks of mourning, which I like to talk about in groups a lot of time. But that usually refers to TEAR as the acronym. Growing around grief. Of course, I mentioned our 5 stages of grief, but the dual processing model as well. There's other theories out there. If you would like more information, we can talk about those too. But there are other theories, so just keep those in mind when you're learning about anticipatory grief or grief in general. And we have some more misconceptions is saying at least blank. You know, we don't know what to say sometimes. So we like to try to make someone feel better. But we know that grief is something that cannot be fixed, but it can be heard. So try to avoid using those silver linings or the other attempts to make that person feel better. And instead, just listen. It's so valuable. So try to avoid anything with at least blank. Um, Another common misconception is if someone's caregiving and they're thinking, this person who I'm taking care of is still declining. What am I doing wrong? Remember that you're caring for someone with a terminal illness and it's providing care and comfort to someone with a life-limiting condition. So an increase in symptoms is not a measure of your care that you're providing, but it's actually related to their disease process. That can be a question that comes quite often, and you're doing a great job caring for your person too. So we have a discussion question because I like to kind of check in with people to see if you know a little bit more about the difference between grief and mourning. So if you want to take a minute or so and just put it in the chat box or think it over, you don't have to put it out there for everyone to see. What do you think the difference is between grief and mourning? I'll give you a hint, there is a difference. All right, and we're already about that 30-second mark too. Holly, are there any guesses in the chat box?
Yeah, we have one that says there are rituals around mourning, whereas we may not have rituals for grieving. Grief is the collection of all the feelings between happy and sad. Grief is immediate and mourning goes on forever.
Ooh, I like that.
Grief is short term and mourning is long term.
Great. Thank you for sharing those, and thank you for putting some guesses in there too. I love your feedback. So definitely, grief refers to the internal response to loss. So it's kind of like the private part of grief is what people cannot see. So those are those reactions we kind of talked about. And whoever said the word rituals did such a great job. So yay. Mourning refers to the outward expression of loss and how it is integrated in your life by exactly those rituals. Talking about your person, I like how Dr. Alan Wolfelt, he puts grief is, or mourning, excuse me, is grief that has gone public. So it's a good way to remember mourning. So remembrance rituals, a funeral, celebration of life, any of those, something as simple as sharing stories. Lighting a lantern or a candle in honor of that person. Those are all different ideas about mourning. And we just really want to encourage people to not only grieve, but mourn too throughout your life. So thank you. So it's good to have some tips to cope with the anticipatory grief that we may come about in our lives. And this is what I wanted to talk to you about a little bit. So we have education and planning. So with this it is helpful to learn about the person's condition. So if you're involved as a caregiver role, I encourage you to speak with their healthcare provider about their current or expected symptoms, conversations about their plan of care or goals of care too. And remember, these are ongoing conversations throughout the experience. Encourage you to write these questions down before visiting the doctor, take notes while you're there, or even ask for a summary of the visit.
Emily, we had a question.
Oh, yeah.
Megan, go ahead.
Thank you so much. Hi. The only thing that I was sort of struck by when you spoke about the different ways that grief, the different manifestations of grief at the beginning was is I didn't see the word anxiety. And I know that like my sister's husband is having dementia issues and she has a lot of anxiety around that. So I was just kind of, I noted that. So anyway, I just wanted to add that to the possible ways of feeling anticipatory grief.
Oh yeah, thank you, Megan, for adding that. So definitely. So it's not it's not all the reactions that one can experience are on that list. So there are many others. Anxiety is a very common one too. So I really appreciate you sharing that because there's definitely that, even a highlight of mortality. So there's definitely those aspects in there too. So thank you for that question. I appreciate it. And then with these conversations, these are of course difficult conversations as you have them throughout, but trying to learn about the person's wishes related to their end of life. So talking to them about their funeral homes, maybe they have one that they prefer or that they've worked with in the past, cremation or burial, decisions related to life-sustaining treatment too. Those can relieve some of those roles and responsibilities that I mentioned, and it can give you an idea of what those person's wishes are. So then it can take away a little bit of that questioning for you. But also start arranging that necessary paperwork to prepare for medical or financial planning. Power of attorneys, advance directives, whatever they may be, is just trying to start putting forth that effort and gathering those necessary things to put together, as well as applying or checking eligibility benefits. So if they're a veteran, checking in with the VA, if they're looking for state paid services, whatever that might be, trying to get that as early planning because it takes some time for the processing of different documents and trying to check that eligibility too. And now we have finding support is another one of our tips for coping. Some family or friends may be willing or able to help, and even a few hours of respite a week with respite is able to take a break. Even a few hours can improve a caregiver's well-being. So your local area agencies on aging may assist you in identifying those services. And an idea for asking for help, because a lot of times it's much easier said than done, is to help include identifying a task or time that you can ask for help with. So an example that we have here is it would be really helpful for me if you could stay with mom Tuesday night so I can go to my book club for 2 hours. So that's not kind of putting it out there. It's identifying a time, a certain task, and it's very specific, and that can help get you a little additional support too. And it is okay to ask for help. And then us offering help. If you're supporting a grieving person, considering offering a specific type of help to them and instead of saying, let me know if you need anything, even though that might be very genuine, if someone's not likely to ask for help, then they might not know what to ask for help for. So ideas include is offer to pick them up a meal or a bag of groceries, helping them with phone calls or chores if they, and of course you, are comfortable with that. But that can be a very helpful and easy way to help a grieving person. I've even heard of the term of grief groceries, and they said, I just picked up the basic essentials and brought them by and put them at the front door. So those very simple things are very, very significant. And remember, it's okay to not have the right words to say. A person who's willing to be supportive, present, and able to listen is incredibly valuable. So we don't have that pressure of having to fix that to make them feel better, but truly letting them be heard and offering that that support. So more about finding support. As you can see, I think it's very important. Is the person you are caring for receiving hospice services? So if they are, check in with the agency's volunteer coordinator. There may be volunteers available for scheduled visits that may benefit both the patient and their caregiver. This might be reading or giving them a break so they can go hop in the shower for a moment and just, like I said, maybe read or watch a TV show together, whatever that might be. And support is essential in navigating this journey. So consider attending a local or online group, support group, excuse me, through your local ONA affiliates. Other supportive resources include moderated blogs or discussion forums, books, videos, counseling, wellness centers. There are a whole lot of supportive resources out there. I included our different ONA affiliates. So we have care partners. So we have, if you're in these areas, I included them. We have us for Klamath Hospice and Palliative Care, serving the different area, as well as Lumina Hospice and Palliative Care. So it gives you an idea of the different areas that they serve, to check in to see if we can help get that support or give you ideas of different resources out there. And we have memories, the past and present. So reviewing a person's life story with one another may bring a sense of comfort and connection. And allowing for the creation of new memories. So often the very significant memories are cherished, or the very small and innocent experiences. And this is probably one of my favorites, is trying to build something together, such as an art project or other activities. If children are involved, this may be a good opportunity for them to participate as well and have fun. Remember that children grieve too in their own way, and there are many resources available for supporting grieving children together. But different projects together is a great way to put in some creativity and a little opportunity. So we've made stepping stones before, lanterns, memory boxes, whatever it may be. Those are very fun opportunities to make some new memories together. And now we have self-care. So self-care is sacred. Taking care of yourself can be separated into different sections. So it's a kind of an easier way to think about it. So you have your physical, your cognitive, emotional, and professional sections. And we tend to take really good care of some, but then we tend to neglect one or more in there. Self-care activities can affect these. So one self-care activity can affect your physical, your emotional, spiritual, professional, whatever it may be. And here's some examples. So it doesn't have to be getting a massage or something big. It can be something as simple as drinking water, replacing that instead of those sodas, going to a doctor or counseling appointments, exercising, journaling, affirmations, meditation, spending time with animals, setting goals, and even taking those breaks. So like I mentioned, that respite is very helpful, taking a break. So even a 20-minute break can be very helpful. So this is another time that I was going to ask you to pop into the chat box is, what is your favorite self-care activity? Mine when it's warm outside is taking our big dog on a walk. It is so nice just to get out there and put some steps in. But I kind of have to negotiate that during the winter time because snowstorms are not as appealing to go walk through for me. So that might be when I am very good at changing out drinking water instead of those sugary drinks. So trying to find different things that just make your heart feel happy and building up that protective armor. Holly, do we have any? Hopefully we have lots of self-care to choose from.
Yeah, they're coming in. So I'll just read them as they come in. Swimming, journaling, prayer, walks, getting a massage, talking to my sisters, going to the gym, holding my cat. So like you talked about, walks, animals,
Yes.
journaling, meditation, all of those things.
Awesome. Thank you guys for sharing. So, and maybe this is a new time to get a new self-care activity. So maybe you have not tried something before and it's time to try it out. And a lot of times it is trial by error, to see what works and what doesn't work. Kind of put a plan to it for emotions. So then you can say, okay, this week I'm going to do these 3 things to take care of myself, and then review it at the end of the week. Were you successful at it? is it just not appealing right now? Like I said, just walking in the snowstorm might not be the most appealing thing at the moment. So finding things that truly speak to you that you want to do to take care of yourself too. And this is a good quote that we came across is being a caregiver for someone you love is a gift to them and to you. However, caregiving can also be stressful and exhausting. So over time, you may find yourself becoming more overwhelmed and run down. Then you feel guilty because it's a gift, right? So this is from Where You Live Matters and Preventing Caregiver Burnout is we can acknowledge and validate that it is stressful. There's many different elements in this process that we talked about. So it's okay to get that support. It's okay to take a break. You deserve a break. Everyone needs a break here and there. So just making sure that you're taking good care of yourself and preventing that caregiver burnout. So even if you're not in that role of a primary caregiver, but just living, just take good care of yourself. For this, I wanted to just talk about mourner's rights for a little bit. And these are your rights to do that it's okay to do. So it gives you permission. It's okay for grief to be happening before a loss takes place. Like we said, anticipatory grief is that to an impending loss. And some days you may be ready to express your feelings, and other days you might be desperate for a distraction, and it can help you feel like yourself again. I have the right to know the truth and have my questions answered honestly. I have the right to be heard with dignity and respect. I have the right to not agree with other people's perceptions or conclusions. I have the right to feel a multitude of emotions, and I have the right to be tolerant of my physical and emotional limits. So I recommend, possibly taking a screenshot of it, popping it on your refrigerator, on your mirror, or whatever it is it's okay to have these feelings. It's okay to, these are your rights. So overall is remember to be kind and patient with yourself as you and those around you experience anticipatory grief differently. So find comfort in what is shared and embrace what is unique to you. So if you have any additional thoughts or questions, I know Holly and Lori have been monitoring that chat box too. So if you want to put them in there or raise your hand, like the question earlier was great. I did include our contact information for the different affiliates here, as well as our website, email, because maybe you don't want to ask a question publicly. That's okay. So you're welcome to reach out to any of these listed people to learn a little bit more of different grief support groups that are available, caregiving support groups that are available, and just get those questions answered. So I'll leave this slide up for a bit, and my last slide just had some different sources that were listed from this presentation, but I like to leave this one up for just a moment, so then you can write any of that information down too.
I just see a question here, Emily, that says, what is a memory box?
What is a what?
Memory box.
Oh, a memory box. Great question. Thank you. That is a little box that you can use any size. You can make a jar, whatever it is. And those are little opportunities. So one of the different ideas surrounding a memory box is throughout the year or whatever time that is to write down memories that person, so maybe they have died or maybe they are diagnosed with a life-limiting condition. So that's when you can work together or work with whoever's involved to write down memories. And at the end of the year on a special date, then you can open it up and review those memories together. So a lot of times kiddos will talk about doing this as an activity throughout the year. And then on the certain special days or occasions, holidays or something, they'll open it up as a family and they'll go over those memories. And there are laughs and there are tears, but it's just a way to kind of cope and talk about that person, especially if someone's feeling like they don't want to bring out and share a story. Maybe they can have it be a prompt, and then it's something a little bit more fluid. So it can kind of help talk and encourage that communication.
Thank you, Emily. I wanted to mention someone did ask us to post the mourner's rights and Holly said that she'll include those in her email that she sends out after this program is over.
Awesome.
Yeah, and there's also, you know, another that Mourners' Rights reminded me, there's also a thing called the Holiday Bill of Rights for
Yes.
people who are grieving. And that's something you can, you know, something you can just look up if you want to read it, but that we tend to send that around during the holidays, and it just reminds folks that, you don't have to be happy during the holidays, or, you know, you can have your moment if that's what you need. So it's okay to not be okay. I think we had that in one of the slides, but yeah, that's kind of the point of those Bill of Rights.
I have a question. I was wondering, what about showing grief in front of the person who's ill, or that you're caregiving, or a family member who's on hospice or something? I think so many people tend to withhold grief in front of those people, those patients. And I was wondering, is there, what's the right thing to do? Is
So
there
it,
a right thing to do?
you know, it varies, of course, of each person's level of comfort, but what we usually talk about and encourage is that if you're hurting, it's likely that the other person who you're taking care of is hurting too. As a professional, and what our kind of the standard that we've talked about is, it's okay to share or to show grief among those, as long as you're not exceeding, and that's the key word, exceeding the family's grief. We don't want to have the family be comforting us. It takes away, that's not our role for it. So it's just trying to make sure of having that self-awareness of when you need to step away if you're a professional. And, you know, we're humans, so we get emotional, of course. So just having that awareness to step away. And then having a really good support person who you can go talk to, and taking care of yourself. So I know, as our hospice organization, I mentioned that we do different morning rituals. We have a lantern that we can light, and it's a little electric lantern, and we just can light it in honor of someone who has died. And then we know that one of our coworkers might be having a rougher day today. So that's our way to mourn those who have died. But as for family, definitely, it's okay to grieve in front of your person, and it's okay to grieve in front of children too. Like, it's okay for them to see you cry, because they'll learn that people cry and then they are okay.
Yeah, thank you.
I put this in the chat, but for those who can't see it, we've talked a little bit about children's grief. And there's a ton of really good resources online if that's something that you're just not sure what to do or where to start. There's some really great simple activities that you can download templates for, or just get ideas from online. And also in the Portland area, there's an organization called the Dougie Center, which I put that in the chat, and they have some great resources on their website as well, including like books and some other things that might help youth specifically who are grieving. So that's another good resource that we have. And like Emily mentioned, Klamath has some great youth activities for youth that are grieving, and Lumina does as well. So feel free to check out the resources we have on our website if you're needing those.
And I'll show the sources page too, since that gave everyone a little moment to jot those down. And then there's a great book too from Dr. Alan Wolfelt that's just a little handheld copy of coping with anticipatory grief that he talks about. So there's many resources, like Holly said, out there, and we can always help you locate some of those, or maybe we have a list that we can provide you, but that is something that we're more than willing to just help give you that support.
there any other questions before we wrap up here? Just had a question come in the chat. Do you have any suggestions for removing belongings or items left? I'm assuming from a person who's died.
So this is a common topic that comes up in our grief support group. And a suggestion or a tip that you can do is to create small goals. So find a good support person who can maybe go through those belongings with you, so you don't have to do it by yourself. But create some small goals. So if you have one box and you want to go through that box, that's great. If you pull that box out and you're like, this is a lot, I'm only going to go through a quarter of it, that's okay too. There is no timeline to have to get rid of possessions, I mean, truly, and just go forth with what you feel comfortable with. And there's nothing wrong with having those, putting them aside and coping with it, or completing that task on another day. I know that there's a person who has had Splenda on their table because their spouse used Splenda in their coffee, and they have just kept that on their table, and they said it makes them smile. So that's one of those suggestions, is do what you're comfortable with. Gain that support. If you can't do it alone, that's okay. And maybe find a good support group that you can talk to about these different things, because the chance of that one person having that question, I can bet there's many others on even just this presentation who have had that question come up or have to have that event in their life.
There's another question here that says, can you talk about mourning rituals beyond funerals and memory boxes?
So sharing stories is an act of mourning. You can do that. As I said, like the lantern idea, you can create stepping stones. Really just into how you integrate that person and that person's memory in your life is the act of mourning. So it doesn't have to be something extravagant. It can just be something as simple as, oh my goodness, don't you remember how so-and-so did this? And kind of creating that conversation. So like I said, it doesn't have to be something big. It can just be something very simple and significant. It's usually those little things that stay with us and make you smile on some days and also cry on the others.
One thing too that we have included in our family grief support that's a great activity for kids or adults is going out in nature and either looking for natural mandala shape, or like clearing a spot to kind of make your own. And whether you're making it with stones or pine cones or whatever the case is, and just kind of taking that time to like think about those memories, or even share them out loud if you are with others. And I think just getting outside, whether
Yes.
you think you like it or not, is good for you. So that helps as well.
Thank you, Holly. Definitely. Those things, like watching their favorite TV show, putting on Gunsmoke, whatever that might be. It's those little things that are very important.
I will say this too. I've seen like guided journal kind of things where you can help document the memories of your loved one. This might sound kind of weird, but I lost a pet once, and it was very, very intense loss for me. And the vet place gave me this guided journal where I could write about my pet and document memories and put pictures, and I couldn't believe how healing it was for me. It was incredibly powerful, and I'm sure they make those kinds of booklets for people who are grieving and want to memorialize their loved one in a very sacred way.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for sharing that, Lori. It's and we have a grief support group for pet loss. So people grieve and they mourn, and we just want to make sure people feel supported. And I'm so glad that you had that journal, and it really does help to do different things like that. So definitely.
Hmm.
May I add something? I feel like I did that for my younger son when he graduated from high school, and he was the last one to leave the house. And I made like a scrapbook, and I gave it to him for Christmas or something. And at one point he said, this is really more for you than for me, right? And I'm like, yes. And it was like and I thought about how that guided journal the other person was talking about for their pet was really, you're creating kind of a scrapbook, right? It's so healing, and it's such a beautiful memento to have with you for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
I love that, Megan. Thank you for sharing that. That's an amazing example. And I bet your son will come a day when he's like, I can see why mom made this now too. So that's wonderful.
Someone put in the chat too, Emily, that keeping traditions that the person was involved in another way. That their sister was big on decorating sugar cookies at Christmas, so that's what they continue to do now to honor her.
Yes. Oh, I like the sugar cookies. Oh my goodness. Those are the conversations. Like this is the best, to have different conversations surrounding it and what people do and what is healing. And it's great. So I love the sugar cookie ideas. Good job, everyone. Thank you for sharing too.
Yeah. And we also, the member affiliates of ONA, we try and do our own kind of rituals and memorials for the community and for the people that we serve too. So you can keep an eye out for things like that. We at Lumina, we used to do one where people would come together in a park, and they would write down the person's name that they wanted to remember on a ribbon, and then we would have them tie it to something in the park. So it's just like a really pretty setting and kind of a way to remember that person. And you guys just did one at Klamath as well.
Yes, our Christmas tree lighting, we had little memorial lanterns to give out, so people could take those and they could write the person's name or names on it, and then they could pick out like the certain charms to put on it. There was a white feather, different things that they find comforting. So they're like, yes, this is something that reminds me of them. So it's, just trying to honor your own unique ways that are comforting, and then trying to stay connected to their legacy or staying connected to that person. So I know we mentioned the 5 stages of grief, but going back, that's one of those topics of the other theories is the tier model, trying to stay connected to them while still living a meaningful life, processing the pain, all those different things. So if, I encourage you to reach out or to read about those different theories, to talk about grief and talk about mourning and start that conversation.
There's another question here. Do you have a list of readings or grieving to recommend for us? Is there a list maybe that we could send out post program?
We
well?
We have a workbook that has a list of different books on it. As I said, Dr. Alan Wolfelt has several different titles relating to different types of grief, one being anticipatory grief. Speaking Grief is a documentary that's available for free to the public. That's a good one to watch, as it interviews people who are bereaved, who have experienced the death, and then also professionals within grief work. So it has both of them, but we can definitely, I can send that to you, Holly, too, of our different sheet that we have of different books. I mean, it's good to just kind of learn about it. And I know on our websites, we have different articles for pet loss grief, for grief after a suicide, for different types of grief too.
Yeah, I can definitely share those. I was just getting copying our link into the chat, and I'll find
Yeah.
yours too.
Was this question answered? Is the workbook you mentioned available from one of the websites? Is that the website you just posted the link to, Holly?
There's
Oh, I don't know. Do you guys have it available, Emily?
so one of the workbooks that we don't, ours that we have is not available online, but there is a workbook that I'm familiar with on the Mind Remake project. And she has a workbook about grief and loss specifically, that's available for a PDF version for free too. And I believe that's mindremake.org. But I can always give you that information too, Holly, and give you a quick link to it to send out.
Hey. There's not any other questions. We can wrap up here. And as we've mentioned a couple times, we will be sending an email out to everyone that was registered for today's presentation. So that'll include the recording. If you want to watch it again or share with others, you can definitely do that. And then we'll also include some links to some of the resources that we've talked about today as well. And yeah, so keep an eye out for that in the next few days. And once again, we just want to thank the Oregon Nonprofit Hospice Alliance for sponsoring this presentation, and thank you all for being here today. And thanks to Emily for being our presenter.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys having me, and thank you for all the great questions.
Thank you.
The website is mindremakeproject.org.
Perfect. Oh, good. And I just put it in the chat too.
Thank you.